I worked as a night nurse at a busy urban hospital. It was a tough job, but I needed it to pay my student loans and support my mom. I thought I was prepared for anything. But those night shifts always felt off. I remember my first night clearly. I started at 11 p.m. The overhead lights flickered like an old movie. The hospital was too quiet. I walked by room 213 and heard a beeping sound. There were no patients in there. It felt strange, but I shrugged it off. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine, but I thought it was nothing. The next night, things got weirder. I was restocking supplies when I heard whispers coming from the supply closet. The voices were soft, like they were sharing secrets. I froze, unsure of what to do. I thought maybe it was another nurse. Cautiously, I opened the closet door. It was empty, just shelves full of bandages. A chill crept up my back. Something felt wrong. As the nights went on, strange things kept happening. One night, I checked on Mr. Collins. He was in a coma. I was looking at him when I thought I saw his fingers twitch. My heart raced. He hadn't moved in weeks. I quickly looked at the monitors. Everything was normal. I convinced myself it was just my tired eyes, but the thought stayed with me. The following night, I found the medical charts all rearranged. I couldn't remember if I had moved them. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. Was I losing my grip? Exhaustion set in, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Then one night, it happened. I walked past room 215 and saw a figure by the window. I thought it was a doctor or another nurse. I knocked softly and opened the door. The room was empty. I looked around, but no one was there. My heart pounded. I was feeling cold all over. Exiting the room, I scanned the hall for someone. That's when I heard a soft laugh echo through the air. It chilled me to the bone. I turned quickly, but the hall was empty. I stood frozen. If this was a prank, I didn't want to play anymore. I worked long shifts, and maybe it was stress. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the shadows. Every morning, as I left the hospital, I felt it. I felt its eyes on me. Then, the whispers returned. They were faint, but I could hear them. I didn't know what they were saying, but I could tell they were calling me. I wanted to ignore them, but I couldn't. I share this with you now, a few months later. My nights are still haunted by those strange events. I don't work night shifts anymore. But every time I pass a hospital, I feel that chill again. I wonder if whatever was there is still waiting for me in the dark. The weeks passed since I left the hospital, but the unease didn't fade. I often found myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a call from my old job. When the night grew quiet, the whispers returned to haunt me. They would swirl in my mind like a restless wind, reminding me of the shadows in the hospital. One evening, I received a message from a friend still working there, Lisa. "You've got to come in," it read. "Something strange is happening." My first instinct was to ignore it. I didn't want to go back. But curiosity got the better of me. What could have escalated since I left? The next night, I found myself standing at the entrance of the hospital, my heart racing. The same flickering lights greeted me. The air felt heavy, like the weight of something unspoken lay just below the surface. Lisa was waiting for me in the break room. Her face was pale, and she looked on edge. "You won't believe what happened last night," she said, glancing around as if someone was listening. A patient screamed. The monitors went haywire, but when we got to the room, he was fine. "Just sleeping." "That's odd," I replied, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling. She nodded. "That's not all. There's more." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They're saying they hear noises. Voices in the halls when no one is around." The memories flooded back. The laughter, the whispers. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. It's not just tiredness, is it? I asked, desperate for a rational explanation. Lisa shook her head. Nurses are starting to call it a haunting. It's creeping everyone out. I forced a laugh. It sounds like a horror movie. But as we walked the halls, the uneasiness returned. The shadows loomed larger. I caught a glimpse of movement from the corner of my eye. I whipped around to find nothing there. Did you see that? I whispered, my voice shaking. Lisa opened her mouth to reply, but before she could, the power went out. The hospital plunged into darkness. The emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows along the walls. We were trapped in the dim light, anxiety toying with my senses. Let us find the generator, Lisa urged. I nodded, but dread washed over me. Shadows danced around us, and I could feel the whispers surrounding us, growing louder. We moved cautiously down the hall, listening for anything out of the ordinary. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting across the end of the corridor. I stopped in my tracks. Did you see that? I exclaimed, breathless. Before Lisa could answer, the laughter returned, echoing through the empty halls. It felt closer this time. My heart raced, and I could feel the panic rising in my chest. The whispers swelled, a chorus calling out for something. Or someone. We ran toward the generator room, hoping to restore some light. But with every step, the laughter intensified. It rolled through the air like a wave, drowning out my thoughts. I could feel the temperature dropping, the air thickening with an unseen presence. When we reached the door, I hesitated. Something told me not to open it. Lisa, I started, but then she pushed it open. Inside was chaos. Wires hung loosely, and the generator did nothing but hum ominously. But it wasn't that made me freeze. It was the figure I saw within the same ghostly outline I saw weeks ago by room 215. I stumbled back, fear gripping me. But Lisa stepped forward, pulling me with her. We have to stay together, she whispered, but I felt the pull of whatever was there, calling me. Everything around us felt like it was closing in. I realized I had to know the truth behind those whispers. Before I could voice my thoughts, the door slammed shut behind us. I was frozen, the darkness pressing in around us. The door slamming shut echoed in the small generator room. I was acutely aware of Lisa's hand gripped tightly around my wrist, her knuckles white. Panic surged through me. What just happened? I gasped. Stay calm, Lisa whispered, scanning the shadows. The generator light flickered, illuminating ghostly outlines on the walls. I could still see the figure in the corner, but now it seemed to be shifting and moving, taking on a shape I couldn't fully understand. The air felt alive, electric. I don't like this, I fumbled, the laugh echoing again, more pronounced, making my skin crawl. It darted off into the distance, swirling through the hallway outside. Let us just get the lights back on, Lisa said, her voice a size too small for the enormity of our surroundings. She stepped toward the generator, but as she did, the humming turned to a growl, rattling the metal casing. No, no, no. She exclaimed, slapping her hands against it. Start. I flinched as the noise peaked, my heart pounding. Suddenly, the figure appeared to glide closer to us, trailing wisps of something dark. It wasn't just the dim light playing tricks. This was something real. I could feel its presence, like a silent scream. Lisa, we have to go now, I urged, pulling her gently but insistently. Then it spoke. Help, it said, a raspy whisper that clawed at my sanity. It was a plea, but it felt too close, too urgent, suffocating even. I could see Lisa's eyes widen. Did you hear that? She gasped. Yeah, I heard it, I replied, backing away from the generator. We need to. Before I finished, the generator's noise fell to a low hum, and the emergency lights flickered off. Darkness enveloped us completely. "Lisa!" I called out, fear creeping in. "Stay close." My pulse thundered in my ears as I reached blindly for her. I felt her arm, gripped it tightly, and we moved backwards, away from the figure that I knew was lurking. In the silence, the whispers returned, swirling around us like wind. I struggled to focus. "We're looking for the main power, right?" I asked, trying to drown out the sound. "Let us find it." "Right," Lisa replied, her voice shaky but tenacious. We stumbled half-blind through the darkness, half relying on our memories from countless shifts spent in these very halls. My thoughts bounced back to Lisa's earlier words, a haunting. What if that is true? What if we were trapped here with something beyond our understanding? Just when I thought we might find our way back, Lisa gasped sharply, halting the movement. "Wait," she whispered. "What? What is it?" "Look," she pointed into the darkness ahead. I strained to see, heart racing, when sudden light flooded the room from behind us. The door swung open, and there stood a nurse, silhouetted against the bright hallway. "Is anyone in here?" she called out, looking bewildered. Relief washed over me, but then her gaze darted to the generator, and the expression on her face twisted into something almost terrified. "Get out!" she shouted, slamming the door behind her. "Why? What is wrong?" I yelled, panic rising again. But before she could answer, the laughter returned, and when I turned back, the figure was gone. Yet the whispers grew louder, coalescing into urgent words. I felt the chill as the shadows closed in. "Lisa, we need to go. Now." I pulled her, and we dashed back to the door. But as we reached it, it wouldn't budge. It was locked. Panic swallowed me whole. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. We were trapped, and whatever was haunting this place was not done with us yet. I took a step back from the door, heart racing. "It's locked. What do we do?" My voice trembled, a mixture of fear and confusion. The whispers were louder now, swirling around us, more insistent. "Let me try again," Lisa said, rushing to the door and pounding her fists against it. "Help! Someone! Please!" The noise echoed, but it was drowned out by the laughter outside, twisting and turning through the corridor like a deranged melody. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. "This can't be happening," I thought. "Wait!" I shouted, looking back toward the generator. "The power! We need to try again, it could be the fault of the generator." Lisa turned, her eyes wide with fear, but there was determination there too. "Okay," she nodded, leading the way to the flickering, rattling machine. As we approached, a sudden gust of cold air hit us, sending shivers down my spine. The generator dimmed further, and I swore I saw a shadow flit across the metal casing. "It's failing," Lisa murmured, looking at it with dread. "It's not just the power," I said, feeling it in my bones. "Something else is here." The figure reappeared. It loomed in the corner, its whispers clawing at my mind. "Help, help!" At first, I thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then I felt a chill that gripped my lungs. "Lisa, look out!" I yelled, yanking her back just as something darted forward. It wasn't just a shadow anymore, it had form and volume, ready to strike. She stumbled back against the generator, and I felt desperation clawing at my throat. "Get to the back. We need to block the." Before I could finish, the generator emitted a screeching wail, and the lights above flickered back on. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. "What did you do?" Lisa whispered, hands shaking, still reeling from the sudden light. "I don't know. It just happened," I stammered, eyes darting between her and the figure that had now become a solid mass. Yet, as the lights brightened, the shape morphed. It transformed into a blinding swirl of light and shadow. I blinked, trying to comprehend this new reality, but it twisted my perceptions. Then it spoke again, clearer this time. "Help me." My stomach churned with dread. "I can't," I whispered, backing away in horror as the figure's eyes locked onto mine, dark, hollow, and filled with despair. The laughter rose. It pierced through the room, and I felt the walls constricting, closing in. "We couldn't stay. We couldn't stay here. Lisa." I grabbed her arm again, pulling her toward the door. "We need to get out." But suddenly, the generator sputtered and died, plunging us back into darkness. "Move!" I shouted, tearing at the door once more, but it resisted like a living thing. My chest tightened with panic. "It's not budging. I can't believe this." Then I noticed it. A small, glimmering object on the ground, half covered in debris. I bent down, fingers brushing against it. A keycard. "Look!" I gasped, holding it up. "Maybe it can unlock the door." Lisa nodded, her face pale but focused. "Try it." I rushed back to the door, inserting the keycard into the slot, heart pounding. But just as I pressed it against the reader, the air shifted again, carrying the sound of heavy footsteps approaching from the shadows. I glanced back at Lisa. "We have to hurry." And then the footsteps stopped. I didn't have to wonder anymore. Something was definitely coming for us. The footsteps were closer now, the sound heavy and deliberate. I could barely think. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears like a warning siren. I pressed the keycard against the reader again, praying it would work. "Come on!" I hissed, glancing at the door. But it remained stubbornly locked, mocking my desperation. I shoved the card in harder, fear twisting like a vice around my chest. "You need to," Lisa started, but the words were swallowed by a sudden crash from behind us. I spun around, eyes wide, as a shadow broke through the doorway on the far end of the room. "Is that it?" I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. The figure was indistinct, melting like smoke. But I could see the outline forming tall, looming, and filled with rage. "Let us get out of here," Lisa urged. I turned back to the door, pulling on the handle with a strength I didn't know I had. It still wouldn't budge. The laughter returned, louder and more dissonant, echoing off the walls. I felt frozen, paralyzed by the choice, face the figure or stay trapped. I remembered what Lisa had asked me earlier about the generator. "At the back." "The generator!" I shouted, reversing course and darting toward it. The thing was a mess of wires and machinery, but if the power was in my control, maybe I could fight back. The generator hummed softly, but something about it felt off, alive in a way I couldn't explain. Okay, I mumbled, trying to remember what I had seen when the lights had flickered back on. Behind me, the shadowed figure took a step forward, and I felt a wave of dread crashing over me. "Lisa! Help me!" I cried. She was just standing there, frozen. Suddenly, the lights flickered weakly, then surged back to brightness. I scrambled along the machines, my fingers tracing the cold metal, looking for anything I could use. That's when a flash caught my eye, a small, red button labeled "Override." "Just do it," Lisa shouted, now moving to my side, panic etched on her face. I slammed my palm on the button. The generator roared to life, sparks flying up as the entire room lit up like the 4th of July. Then I heard an ear-splitting shriek emitted from the lurking figure, a sound that seemed to shake the very walls around us. It writhed, a tortured spirit torn between two worlds, and for a moment, I felt genuine sympathy. But we didn't have time to contemplate that, the door was still locked. I turned sharply, my mind racing. "We need to find another way out," I said, darting for the back of the room, but not before one final glance at the figure. It was still there, but something had shifted. It was getting closer. "There." Lisa pointed toward a small window above the generator. "We could climb out of that." Panic surged again. It was high, but I could hear the footsteps growing louder behind us. We might not have a choice. I shouted, scrambling onto the machine as Lisa boosted herself up. Just as I reached for the ledge, the lights blinked, and everything went dark again. The generator sputtered, the shrieking now rising to a fever pitch. I felt the dread creep back in, thicker and more suffocating than before. Then I heard the laughter again. But this time, it felt different, more sinister, more alive. Lisa! I screamed, feeling the cold steel of the generator slip beneath my feet. And then I knew. This wasn't just a night shift gone wrong. We were trapped in something much worse. The darkness was thick, wrapping around us like a suffocating blanket. I squinted, hoping to see something, anything, but all I found was the black void closing in. Fear gripped me tightly, and I cursed under my breath. Lisa! I called out, panic edging my voice. Are you okay? I'm here. She yelled back, and her voice pulled me away from the abyss of despair. What do we do? I felt my throat tighten. There had to be a way out. I remembered the flickering lights. I fumbled with the console of the generator, searching for anything that might bring the power back. My fingers brushed against some buttons, and I pressed one, hoping for a miracle. Nothing happened. The laughter returned, but now it was closer. It danced in my ears, chilling and mocking. We need to get out of here. Lisa shouted again, desperation coloring her tone. Right. I said. I couldn't lose my grip on reality. I forced myself to focus. I scanned the walls in the darkness, hoping to find an emergency exit sign, something to guide us. My heart sank again when I realized how vulnerable we were. Check the door. I yelled over the laughter that seemed to seep through the walls. I could hear Lisa scrambling back toward the door, her breath hitching in fear. It's still locked. What do we do? Then, a strange sound pierced the laughter, metal scraping against metal. My heart stopped. I jerked my head towards the sound, and there it was. Something was inside the room with us now, shifting in the dark. Get away from the door. I shouted. Lisa's footsteps faltered, and I pushed myself toward the shadows, not knowing what I would face. And then, I found a metal pipe lying on the ground. I wrapped my fingers around it, feeling a rush of adrenaline. I couldn't let whatever that thing was get to us. I could barely see, but I could still hear the rustling. That sounds like it's breathing, Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. We have to find a way to fight back. It's weak, and we need to make a move. The metal pipe felt heavy in my grip. Do you think we can break the window? I asked. The tiny glimmer of hope pushed back the churning dread. Maybe. Lisa said, shifting closer to me. Our surroundings were eerily quiet now, as if the world was holding its breath in suspense. Then, we heard another noise, a heavy thudding sound, as if something was moving toward us. My hands tightened around the pipe. On my count. I said, preparing for whatever was coming. Okay. Lisa whispered, fear stark in her voice. 3, 2, 1. Just as I shouted 1, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the room. What I saw froze me in place. The figure loomed in front of us, no longer a shape in the dark, but a twisted visage of terror. I swallowed hard, and before I could scream, it lunged. Run! I yelled, and we bolted toward the window. My heart slammed in my chest, but something told me this wasn't over. As we neared the escape, I looked back. Part of the shadow separated from the rest. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just some entity. It was something familiar. I just couldn't place it. And then a voice echoed, one I thought I would never hear again. We didn't stop to think. We charged toward the window, adrenaline pushing us forward. The glass felt like salvation, but the laughter wrapped around us, turning my blood cold. Wait! Lisa shouted. I didn't stop. But the moment my hand reached for the latch, I hesitated. The figure in the corner was shifting again, and the faint light revealed a face I recognized all too well. Is that? My voice trailed off, heavy with disbelief. I thought I was seeing things. It couldn't be her. Megan? No, no, no. Lisa cried, pulling at my arm. Don't look. But I couldn't tear my gaze away. Megan had been a good friend. I hadn't seen her since that night 2 years ago. Her face was twisted in agony, eyes wide with terror. Was she alive? Or was this just a cruel trick? Megan! I shouted, my voice cracking. What happened? Are you okay? The laughter faded for a brief second. She reached out, lips moving, but I couldn't hear her. I felt a pull towards her. I wanted to help. But then Lisa yanked me back, her panic grounding me. Jason, focus. We have to go. She urged. The moment broke like glass underfoot, reality crashing back in. Shaking my head, I turned back to the window. You're right. Let us break it. My heart raced as I raised the pipe, ready to swing. But I couldn't shake the feeling of dread as I glanced back at Megan. Jason! Lisa shouted again, her voice sharp with urgency. I swung the pipe, the sound of shattering glass slicing through the air. We didn't look back as we scrambled through the jagged opening. Glass crunched underfoot, and I felt the chill of the night air on my face. Freedom was within reach. But as we climbed out, I dared another glance inside the room. Megan was gone. The shadow shifted once more, and I caught the flicker of movement in the corner. It was coming for us. Go. Just run. I yelled, not waiting for a response. Lisa followed, her breaths ragged as we dashed into the alley behind the hospital. I could almost hear the laughter echoing behind us, mocking our escape. We sprinted into the darkened street, the night swallowing us whole. It was chaotic, our footsteps pounding as we searched for a refuge. I couldn't think straight. My mind raced with questions, and my stomach turned with fear. That was her, right? I finally asked between gasps. Megan? I don't know. Lisa replied, her eyes wide. I could see we were both grappling with what had just happened. When the darkness around us quieted, I noticed something in my pocket, a small, scrap of paper. I pulled it out. It was an old photograph of us three, laughing together. The edges were frayed, and a strange ink scribble marred the background. What is this? I murmured, scanning the strange letters. Then, from the shadows, I heard another sound, footsteps approaching. My heart sank all over again. Someone's coming, Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. I shoved the photo back in my pocket and turned to run again, but something told me the truth was just beginning to unfold. The air was thick with tension as we darted down the dim street. I felt like a hunted animal, but there was no time to stop and think. The distant laughter echoed in my mind, taunting me. I could still see Megan's terrified face, and I couldn't shake the dread creeping up my spine. Where do we go now? Lisa's voice quivered slightly, breaking the oppressive silence. I glanced around, weighing our options. I don't know. Just keep moving. We ran towards a nearby coffee shop, one that was always open late. If we could just make it inside, we would feel safer at least for a moment. My thoughts raced as we reached the door. I pushed it open, and the warm glow inside felt like a strange comfort. It was empty, save for a barista wiping down the counter. He looked up, confused. Hey, are you guys okay? I opened my mouth to speak but stopped, my gaze flickering past the counter. A small door at the back of the shop caught my attention. It was slightly ajar, shadows spilling into the cafe. My heart thudded as I took a step closer. We should go, Lisa urged, but something compelled me to investigate. "Wait a second," I said, moving carefully toward the door. There was something familiar about that shadow. Was it Megan again? I pushed the door wider, half expecting to see her on the other side. Instead, I found a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. "Jason! Come on!" Lisa hissed, her anxiety palpable. But my feet felt like lead. Something whispered to me, a mix of curiosity and dread. "I just want to check it out," I said, not fully believing the words myself. "Are you kidding? What if that thing followed us?" She was practically pleading now. I hesitated, then finally made my decision. "We need answers." Lisa groaned but reluctantly joined me as I stepped down the creaky steps. The air grew colder with each step, our breath visible in the dim light. At the bottom, we found ourselves in a small, cramped room lined with shelves of dusty files. Then I noticed an old projector flickering in the corner. A film was running, images flashing across the wall. I stepped closer, squinting to see what it was showing. I gasped. It was a grainy video of Megan, sitting in a chair with a vacant expression. I felt sick. Why was she here? "Jason, we need to get out." Lisa's voice echoed, breaking my focus. Suddenly, the projector whirred louder, the images flickering faster. I glanced back at Lisa, who was shaking her head furiously. Before I could respond, the door behind us slammed shut with a resounding bang. "Uh-oh," I muttered, panic surging through me. Just then, a shadow moved behind Lisa, swift and dark. I barely registered what was happening before I whispered urgently, "Get back." The darkness lunged toward us, and everything crumbled into chaos. "Run!" I shouted, but as I turned to flee, I realized the door was barred from the outside. That's when I felt a cold grip on my shoulder. My heart raced, and as I turned, the laughter echoed once more. It wasn't just behind me, it was all around us. The grip tightened on my shoulder, icy fingers digging into my skin. My breath hitched as I spun around, heart hammering in my chest. The room felt like it was closing in. The shadow was there, circling us, taunting us. "Jason, we have to find a way out," Lisa cried, backing toward the shelves. Her eyes were wide with fear, and I could see that she was shaking. I took a step forward, adrenaline surging. The laughter grew louder. It echoed through the cramped space, drowning out my thoughts. I needed to think clearly. "Maybe we can push the door," I suggested, my voice shaky. It was a ridiculous plan, but I didn't know what else to do. We rushed toward the door, but as we tried to put our weight against it, the laughter morphed into something more sinister. It felt alive, filling every corner of the room. My palms started to sweat as I grasped the handle, but before I pulled it, the shadows shifted. I froze, and so did Lisa. We both turned as a figure emerged from the inky blackness. It was indistinct at first, a shape without features. Then slowly, it solidified. "Megan?" I whispered, terrified that I might be imagining it. The girl in front of us looked exactly like her, but her eyes were vacant, emotionless. "No," Lisa said, her breath catching. "That's not her." I couldn't tear my gaze away from the apparition. The resemblance was uncanny. Instead of comfort, a chill washed over me. Whatever this was, it wasn't my friend. Suddenly, the projector whirled to life again, the flickering light illuminating the room. The film began to show images of Megan, but they weren't memories I recognized. Disturbing scenes unfolded before us, flashes of her in a hospital room, tied to a bed, surrounded by shadowy figures. I felt sick again. "We have to get out," Lisa repeated, her voice rising. I could feel her panic crashing over the wave of confusion. The figure turned toward us, its vacant eyes boring into our souls. Without thinking, I shouted, "Megan! If that's you, show us a way out." The figure didn't respond directly. Instead, it pointed toward the opposite wall. Confusion clouded my mind. Was it trying to help us? Or was it a warning? Lisa's hand gripped my arm tightly. "I don't think we should trust it," she said, shaking her head. But I felt we had little choice. The door remained firmly shut, and we were out of options. I took a cautious step toward the wall, following where the figure pointed. As we approached, I felt a strange pull, a tingling sensation. The wall felt different, like it was alive. Just as I reached out to touch it, the shadow surged toward us once more, darkness swallowing the flickering light. Then everything went dark. My heart raced. "Lisa!" I called, but my voice echoed back, swallowed by the darkness. I could barely see my own hands in front of me. Suddenly, the laughter returned, loud, mocking, filling the void around us. That's when I noticed a faint glimmer. Something was lying on the ground. I reached out, my fingers brushing against something solid. I held it up, squinting. It was a key. But before I could process it, the laughter stopped. I heard something shift behind me, and I froze, knowing whatever was in the shadows had returned. Would I unlock the door and escape? Or was whatever awaited me outside even worse? I gripped the cold key tightly, my heart pounding as I felt the oppressive darkness close in around me. The weight of hesitation pressed down on my shoulders. I didn't know what I was facing behind me, but I sensed it was something alive, something watching and waiting. "Lisa?" I whispered, voice barely breaking through the thick silence. There was no response. I took a shaky breath, willing myself to move. I needed to find a way out. With careful determination, I took a step forward, the key glinting faintly in the muted light. I searched for any sort of exit, praying for some sign of hope against the unknowns that surrounded me. The darkness seemed to ripple as I moved, the air thick with a malevolence I could almost taste. I glanced toward the wall the figure had pointed to earlier, where the shadows had swirled ominously. I could still see the outline of something, perhaps a door, perhaps an escape. I touched the cold surface, feeling a tremor that echoed in my bones. Taking a deep breath, I inserted the key into a lock I couldn't clearly see. The handle turned with surprising ease, and I held my breath, praying it wouldn't rattle back into the shimmer of nothingness. As I pushed the door open, the hinges creaked in protest. Light spilled in, a stark contrast to the all-consuming dark behind me. "Let us go," I called out, hoping against hope that Lisa was still somewhere close. I rushed through the door, half expecting to feel a cold grip pulling me back, but nothing came. I found myself in a narrow hallway, cluttered with hospital equipment and covered in dust, as though it hadn't been used in a long time. I glanced behind me, but the door had shut, sealing away the darkness. The laughter was gone, muffled now, a distant echo that sent shivers down my spine. But then, a soft voice broke the silence, ethereal yet familiar. "Jason, Megan?" I called, hope and dread colliding within me. "Are you here?" "No one can help you now," the voice replied, wavering like a candle flame. The sound threaded through the hall, pulling at my heart. Thoughts raced through my mind. Was this an illusion? Was the darkness just a trick? I needed clarity, answers to the questions that had haunted me ever since that first night in the hospital. "Where are you?" I shouted, trying to find direction in the fleeting whispers. "What happened to you?" The darkness rattled around me, an unsettling thickness in the air. "You have to choose before it's too late." Her voice faded as the hallway trembled, shadows elongating and twisting in ways that felt grotesque. Just then, I spotted a pale light at the end of the corridor. Something urged me to move toward it, a spark of hope in the depths of my confusion. I dashed forward, feeling the wall close behind me, but that wasn't my priority anymore. As I reached the light, I found a room bathed in a warm glow, unlike anything I'd seen before. Papers were strewn across a table, revealing faces I recognized even in their photographs: nurses, doctors, even friends. But underneath their smiles were names, and dates. The connections clicked into place, and dread chilled my veins. "What is this?" I murmured, stepping closer. The last name on the list was familiar. Megan. Underneath it was an ominous date marked in black, "Not found." Angry shadows flickered at the edges of the light. The moment swelled heavy, a truth uncovered. I hadn't come merely to find Megan, I was here to confront whatever had taken her. Suddenly, the air grew cold. I turned, and there it was, a dark figure enveloped in shadows. A face so eerily familiar twisted into something unrecognizable, filled with rage. It was him, someone from the past I had once known intimately but had been lost to the darkness. "Why?" I gasped, feeling the weight of loss that enveloped me. "What have you done?" "Help them or help yourself," the figure hissed, and with it came a rush of memories, faces of others who had been consumed, shadows that had whispered their names. I thought they were gone, but I had been wrong. I felt the key slip from my fingers, clattering to the floor. I gasped. "No. I can't leave them." "Then consolidate your existence," it retorted, advancing with a feral grin as laughter bubbled around me, morphing into anguished cries. "Replace what's lost." But I couldn't think. I had to run. Every part of me screamed that the path led back, that I needed to find Lisa. I turned and fled the room, heart racing in desperation. The laughter turned to a cacophony, gnashing my thoughts together. What if I couldn't find a way out? What if I became one of those faces, consumed by shadows? Would I lose myself, lose everything I loved? The terrifying thoughts loomed as I rushed down the hallway, seeing the outlines of doors flash past. Then, ahead, I spotted Lisa's silhouette framed in the wavering light. "Jason!" she cried out, relief flooding her voice. I barreled toward her, and as I reached her, I felt something shift between us, two lives caught in an unseen struggle. I grasped her hand tightly. "We need to focus," I shouted above the chaos. "We have to confront what's going on." But before she could respond, the ground shook beneath us. The laughter roared with renewed vigor, and the air thickened, alive with shadows yearning to spill over. "Let us go," I urged, dragging her toward another exit. But this time, Lisa hesitated, her eyes darting back into the dark. "What if Megan is still there?" she asked, uncertainty shadowing her face. "Then we'll find her," I resolved, heart beating in a wild rhythm. "But we can't turn back." As we sprinted, the laughter mingled with whispers, echoing a kaleidoscope of hope and despair. I felt a surge of determination. I would not abandon anyone again, not Megan, not anyone lost to this darkness. With each step, uncertainty clawed at me. I could still hear the lingering echoes of pleas, shadows of souls caught in turmoil. Eventually, we burst through a set of double doors, leading into a flickering light. The world beyond felt like the surface of a stormy sea. As I paused, the darkness lingered behind, gnashing in frustration. "What now?" Lisa breathed, panting beside me, as we hesitated on the threshold. "There will always be questions," I replied, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. "But this isn't over." In a heartbeat, I looked back, catching a glimmer of movement in the dark, a figure shifting in the fractured light. "Help," it whispered, and I couldn't tell if it was Megan or something else entirely. I turned to Lisa, the uncertainty of what lay behind propelling me into the future. "Let us go," I urged softly. Together, we stepped forward, knowing that whatever waited beyond had no bounds, an endless path of unanswered questions, but also hope. As we emerged into the night, the air felt lighter, whispers fading to silence, but never truly gone. The echoes of laughter hung in the distance, but I didn't look back. Whatever nightmares lingered in the shadows, we would face them, together. And I knew one thing for certain: I might never understand what happened in that hospital, or what shadows still haunted its halls, but I would carry those memories, and perhaps they would guide me through the dark.